Welcome to the Little Wins Podcast, where school leaders share their little wins that build strong culture, with your host, Karen Borchert. Hello, and welcome to Little Wins, where we celebrate the small, powerful things school and district leaders do to build strong, joyful culture for their teams. I'm your host, Karen Borchert, and today I'm thrilled to be joined by Frank Macri, Superintendent of Voorheesville Central School District in New York. Frank is known for his approachable leadership style, his deep commitment to culture, and his belief that real change starts with listening and collaboration. He leads with heart and strategy, and what really stands out is how he uses the little wins, those daily moments of connection, clarity, and trust building, to make a big impact in his schools. Frank, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to talk with you today.
Great. I'm happy to be here.
Great. Well, first, let's start off by taking us to Voorheesville. Tell us a little bit about your district and the community that you serve.
Yeah, we are a small bedroom community outside the suburbs of Albany. We have about 1,250 students. We have roughly 100 students per class. And, our community, we always say it's a purple and gold. And we always say our community bleeds purple and gold.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. How does that look on a typical week or a typical weekend in your district?
Well, our buildings are constantly alive. There's always something happening here. And we're also a community-based school. So all of our community events happen here. So Kiwanis soccer clubs, it's very simple to see like 300 kids on our fields on a Saturday. So we're always alive. There's always something happening here. We have continuing education programs. So just because the day ends at 3:00 doesn't mean that our campuses end and close.
Oh,
when
that's
we have
incredible.
Our open houses, our homecomings, we're community packed. We just had homecoming here last Friday.
Okay.
And we had roughly 700 people here on a Friday night. And we ended our homecoming with our soccer booster club plays fireworks. So
wow.
We have a firework event and the whole community comes out. We have vendors. It's just a great time.
Oh my gosh, that is so much fun. What a great way to build community. So everybody kind of in the community really feels like they're part of this school in this district.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, I probably already know it, but what do you love most about leading in a place like that?
Really, it is the community. It's the idea that we're all here for each other, all here for our students. I live here. I've lived here for 20 years. Yeah. And I had an opportunity to become superintendent of this district, and I jumped at it. Not just because my kids are here, but I could lead where I live and be a part of this and give back.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. That's great. Well, let's go back to that. Let's talk a little bit about your path to leadership and how you got started in education. Can you tell us a little bit about your story?
Yep. So I graduated high school in 1994. Both my mother and father did not graduate high school. So that was a huge event in my house. And then when I went to college, that was another big event. I wanted to be a professional musician, and my father said that I need to get a degree that could actually make money.
Okay.
So I said,
man.
Yep.
When that happens.
Teaching sounds good. And it was probably the best advice I've ever gotten, because I didn't realize after I got into it how important it was. And I realized what teachers did for me growing up.
Yeah.
And the importance of education to break cycles and move forward, and how much impact you can have. So I became a music education teacher in 1998. And then in 2005, I became an assistant principal. And from that point forward, it's kind of been a trajectory up. I secondary principal after that, district data coordinator, and then a superintendent of another district about half an hour away from here, and then of this district.
Oh, that's wonderful. Okay, I have to ask, what type of musician are you?
So I used to be. I'm not that good anymore. My chops are a little rusty, but I was a jazz saxophonist and woodwind specialist.
Oh, wow.
So I still play every once in a while, but not often.
Did your you were a music teacher, but have you ever brought the jazz saxophone into your role as superintendent or as principal?
Oh yeah. So I, every opportunity I get a time to play with the kids, I absolutely do. So I try not to play at concerts, because the concerts are really about the students. So I don't want to take away from the students. But if they have me supporting, I played in bands where we support choirs and things like that before. And also during holidays, I go around and I do like caroling with like different types of songs. So sometimes I'll play away, just to have a little fun. And the kids and staff seem to enjoy it. and I enjoy it.
Oh my gosh. I imagine that's such a fun, they'll remember that. Like
Yeah,
that's very
the
cool.
kids think it's fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, let's talk a little bit about kind of overall about school culture and how you think about school culture. I know culture building is at the heart of your work, and it doesn't just happen at the top. So, will you tell us a little bit about your approach to school leadership and to culture across your district?
So it's changed tremendously over the years.
Okay.
When I started as a principal, I made a lot of decisions and thought I was making great ideas and culture, but it completely changes every time that I speak to somebody. So depending on if I speak to a staff member and they said, "Well, you weren't smiling this day," and it really made me upset. Like I realized that the small things that we do impact what other people see, and their perceptions of us are important. And so my leadership has changed year over year over year. And even when I got here 60 years ago, I believe my leadership has changed tremendously from that point. And the big focus, I think, is perception. It's the reality that we live in, the way that we internalize the data that's around us, and the way that that comes back out is very important because we all see things differently. And, that can change conflict. It can change perception. And I might think of me being a very open and honest person, but in standing outside of a classroom, I'd be listening to a teacher and understanding what's in the room. But a teacher might see me as being overbearing and trying to see what's happening. So making sure that we level our expectations. And I think that's the huge important culture is that we're all on the same page.
Yeah, we're on the same page. I love what you said. The small things we do impact the perception that people see. I think that's a really key little moment there. Can you talk about? Do you have any examples of when that's happened in your work where you were like, "Whoa, I had no idea that little thing made such a big impact"?
Oh, multiple times.
Like positive or negative, in either direction.
Oh, I'll give you a negative one.
Okay, okay,
One day
love that.
there was a situation and I ran to the situation. And afterwards, and it wasn't really that big of a deal, right? But I ran to that. And I had staff members come to me saying, when you run, you escalate all of us. Right. And I said, oh my gosh, I never realized that what I'm seeing as being important was something that other people perceived as an escalator.
As an emergency.
Yeah, as an emergency,
Yeah.
exactly. So now
Wow.
I take it a little bit slower. I always try to smile. I always try to whistle. Even if I'm very
You
stressed out
whistle?
all the time. It's a horrible habit. I get yelled at by teachers because I actually interrupt classrooms by whistling. But I found that even if I'm stressed or if I don't have that smile or I don't look welcoming,
Yeah.
even on a bad day, that can impact staff members, right? That can impact students. And especially if a student is having a bad day and they come in. And this is another thing that I've learned is always greet students, always greet people, always say hello, make sure that people feel seen and heard. And I apologize, my school announcements are going to go off in a moment.
No, it's okay. It's okay. We're here for all of the school announcements.
Yeah. So, but that to me, that's a really important thing too, is making sure that people feel seen and heard. And, even if I don't say hi to them in the hallway, they might feel like that was a slight on purpose. Especially students that are having bad times or don't feel connected. That's an important thing. So those things are the ones that I realized that are most important.
It's like accidentally using punctuation in a text message.
Yes.
My kids don't like it when I do that. They feel yelled at. That's great. Tell me, so you talked about the idea of like that's the perception if you're running to a situation because you think it is important and you're just trying to get there quickly. Other people are like, oh my gosh, there's a huge emergency. Tell me about a perception or a small thing that you've done that has created a perception in a positive way for you. What are some of the things that you do? You mentioned smiling to greet people. What are the other little things that you do in that way?
I do something that people don't know that I do.
Okay.
But I started this a couple of years ago and I found
they're about to.
Well, I know that's the unfortunate thing, right? They'll all know.
That's great.
So I always thought that I made connections and it's all about connections and those connections that I make, but I didn't really wanted to understand and measure that. So now I actually try to keep track of all my interactions with people. So all my staff members, and I keep a folder, and I know it seems crazy, but
no, this is great.
any type of interaction, like say hello to a staff member, talk about their family, acknowledge them by name. Again, if I have 250 staff members, I want to make sure that everybody feels valued. So I write that down. And I write down the conversation that I had or when I had it. So say I'm in a building that I maybe I'm not able to get to, and I see a group of people, I make sure that I go in, I say hello, and then I mark down that I did that, because if not, I realized when I wasn't measuring it, I realized that there were people that would go months without seeing me, months without having an interaction, and that can cause that perception of feeling that I don't care or there's no value there.
Okay, wait a minute. Hold on. We got to run this back. I need to understand something here. What do you have a tracker for 250 staff member? Are you going to show me it?
So it's literally one of these, right?
Okay.
And then I track it, and then at the end of each month, I put it in an Excel format, and I track down and make sure that I feel that I'm making, I meet my bus drivers, I meet my custodial staff. Again, small school district, so I can do that. I have about 200 staff members.
I was gonna say, it's not that small. You have 200 people on your staff. So, okay, so you have an Excel spreadsheet where you have everybody's name,
and
everybody's role, and then you go back through your notebook at the end of every month. So you just did this for the end of September, and then you went through and you go through and you mark who you talked to and the interaction that you had with them.
So if the interaction was more personal based, I write personal. If it was more school based, I write school. Like say I see somebody in the hallway and I say, thank you so much for being in the hall. That means a lot to kids. I mark down that's more school based. Again, these aren't the ones that are your basic interactions that you have to have on a normal basis for faculty meetings or meetings. This is the extra and above. And again, this month I've noticed that there's a large group of people that I was not able to get to. So now then I say, okay, I wasn't able to do this next month. Let's try to make sure that I get to these people.
Okay. I love this. First of all, I've actually thought about doing this with like extended members of my family, like my nieces and nephews, that I'm like, not sure if I've, reached out or said hello to them. I love that you do this. So on a regular, so you have 250 staff, is that what you said?
Yep, about 200, yeah. And then coaches and advisors, and that gets a little bit more difficult because they're not here every day.
Okay, so for 200 staff, what does a typical month look like? How many ticks in the Excel spreadsheet are made in a typical month?
So I try to do my best of getting.
And do you count it? And do you make a chart? Because that's what I would do.
I do about 10 to 20 per week is what I try to do.
10 to 20 per week.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great.
Some are easier than others because of my location and just, proximity to every.
Yeah, for sure. How has tracking it changed your behavior?
Well, it actually made sure that I did it, right? And the first time that I was like, oh, I'm really good at this. And I thought I was amazing at it. And then like the first time I did, I go, holy smokes, I am not as good as I thought I was. And I realized that I was only gravitating towards certain people or because of proximity or area, and I was missing out on a whole group of people. And then you take other data, right? Like you take survey data, or you take, anecdotal data that you learn about maybe people's morale or their feeling of voice, and then you put it next to that.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, then it really opens up those gaps. And you're seeing you're not making people feel welcomed because you've completely ignored them.
Yeah.
So that's changed my practice a lot.
That is so interesting. I've heard a very kind of a related question or concept from other administrators who've said that, if they came into education as a math teacher and a basketball coach, that when they're a principal or they're a superintendent, they have a harder time remembering to reach out to the music teacher or the science department because their topics or subject matter areas that are less kind of familiar and comfortable to them. Did you find that to be the case in your data?
So no, not at all.
Okay. Good. All right.
No, because I worked on, when I became an administrator, everybody's like, well, you're a music teacher. How do you know math? How do you know science? Well, it's not about the content. It's about the systems and procedures that you put in place to make sure the instruction is sound. Are you engaging students? Are you utilizing the rubrics appropriately? What does it look like in your classroom? That extends everything.
Yeah.
And that impacts your culture, right? So all of those things together. So that never really was the issue for me.
Yeah.
It was more so just time and consistency.
Yeah. Yeah. So your goal currently is 10 to 20. Sorry, I get very excited about data tracking sorts of things like this. So your goal is 10 or 20 consistently now. Where did it start?
The start was, it was really just, am I doing it?
Yeah.
And what happened was I would realize that I would do really well one day, maybe get 3 or 4 people, and then I would not get anything for a week or two.
Okay.
Because then I would get bogged down. Because that's the thing with the superintendency is it's very easy to get trapped in your room, get trapped in the 30,000 foot views or all the other issues, and not make sure that you're understanding what's happening in your district.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that as far as, kind of a way to stay connected to what's happening day to day in the classrooms. Do you get a lot of feedback from your staff about kind of that presence and visibility that you're practicing there?
Sometimes, and when I first started it, when I first got here, I think it was different. And sometimes it's seen as like the gotchas, like, oh, he's watching,
Right.
because
right.
not everyone's used to that. But I think
Yeah.
the more that I do it, I think people see, again, I've never made this public, so people don't know that it's actually a goal of mine. So it might change that perception now if people hear this. But I also do it with students too. And I think that's important is, I try to make sure that I go in kindergarten all the way up to senior classrooms. I go eat lunch with the kids, and the secondary, I go around because I also think it's very important for the students to know who I am, for just as much as the staff know who I am, the kids know who I am. So that way, when I go to the grocery store or I go to an event, the kids say hi. And that way the parents say, if they don't know who I am, the kids will say, well, that's our superintendent. So it creates that connection.
That's amazing.
School and community that I think is sometimes lacking. And that everybody can kind of make sure that, and everybody knows enough. And I model that. So I'm hoping that my principals will do the same thing. The teachers do the same thing as well.
Yeah, that was actually sort of my next question is, how do you encourage, so what you're doing, that sort of intentional, what you said, above and beyond interaction, not just the staff meeting, not just, the various events that are going on, but that above and beyond. Are there any things that you do with your principals or with your teachers even to really ask them to sort of participate in that kind of culture with you, or be really intentional about that?
Well, we always talk about making sure it's a welcoming environment, right, for our students. So we really focus in on what that looks like for our students and what that looks like for our staff. And when I first started, I'll be honest with you, I used to say, well, every decision I make is for the kids, right? So a staff member may not like that decision, but that's okay because it's in the benefit of kids. Yeah. And I was wrong. I look back at that and I was like, well, if I'm not making decisions that make staff happy and also taking their well-being into account, then I'm definitely not making good decisions for students. So that shifted over. That's a shift that I've made. With my admin, we always talk about this. We always have conversations. We discuss some articles about this, and we really focus in on the ladder of inference.
Okay.
And how that works. And then I've also now broken that down to staff as well, and how our decisions can have bias in them, and making sure that we understand our perceptions of what's happening and not bring in our own biases.
Oh, that's awesome. Tell us a little bit more about that methodology, about ladder of inference.
So ladder of inference, we do it all the time. It's very quick, and we take about what we see, and then all of a sudden we make constant decisions, and then actions come out of that. And a lot of times we're not listening as well as we could, right? And that's where those perceptions of people come into place, where we automatically think, well, they don't like us because they said that, or they don't like us because their posture is one way or than another way. Mm-hmm. And that's where we talk about that a lot, is what is the reality of it? Are we listening completely? Do we have the full understanding? And let's not answer in our head while somebody is speaking.
Yeah.
So many times people listen, and all they're listening to is how they're going to respond, and not actually doing it. So again, it all ties back down to that perception, to having people feel valued, and people can't feel valued if they're not listened to.
Yeah. Absolutely. I love that. I love that sort of very slight shift from the idea of, every decision I make is for the kids, but then realizing that that sometimes making the best decision for the kids includes starting with the best decision for the adults in the room or the adults in the building. Tell me, do you have any examples? I'm putting you on the spot a bit, but do you have any examples of decisions that you've made in that direction where you've said, I've got to make this decision for the well-being of my staff so that they can best support our kids?
I can't think of any off the top of my head, to be very honest.
That's okay. Maybe one will come up to you as we're going our way here.
But I will tell you that it's the framing of it, I think, has been important.
Yes.
It's because, if let's say, I need to do XYZ for the students, and then I'm not taking into the impact of the stress that puts on my staff members. Am I giving them time to make sure that they plan appropriately for that? Am I taking into account, yes, I want them to do this for kids, but do I know exactly what has to happen for them in order for us to do that? And that's where I might have been, quick to judge and quick to rush.
Yeah. Yeah.
Instead of taking the full account of, yep, here's a decision we're making for a student. Let's say it's a curricular change or something else. And then making sure that I plan accordingly for staff to know that they feel supported. That's kind of what I'm talking about.
That's great. Yeah, that's great. That's really well explained. That's wonderful. Well, shifting just a little tiny bit around kind of being reflective in leadership. I know you value that sort of being reflective in your leadership, stepping back when needed, being thoughtful about your pace and presence. And you've been very intentional about building voice and capacity across your team. So will you tell us a little bit, have you ever taken a step back from leadership to reflect or recharge? Is that something that you've ever, most people, don't talk about that as district leaders of everybody's just kind of full steam ahead all the time. Have you ever taken a moment to take a step back there?
So, never taken a step back of like stopping from leadership, but what I did do a couple years back is, I went to professional development.
Okay.
And I think that's important. And I started going,
okay.
I saw out professional development. And it was suggested to me. And, I thought it was probably the best thing that I've ever done. Because it started to reframe the way that I look at things. I took some courses at Harvard for their certificate of educational leadership. I did Ken Blanchard's study, the 1 Minute Manager in situational leadership. And that's more business world oriented. And then I just started looking. And from that point, I started to realize that there's so much more that I don't understand in organizational structures and systems.
Yeah.
That's really helped me kind of guide where I am today. And like the ladder of inference is from one of those courses that I took. And I think that's probably been the most important thing. So it's not stepping away from leadership. It's just looking at leadership and saying, what am I missing?
Yeah.
And how can I constantly improve? Just like we ask of our staff and our students all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. You actually don't hear very many superintendents that talk very much about their own kind of professional development experiences. And I love the, sort of the 1 Minute Manager, the way that you took on some professional development from the private sector, the business world. What are there things that you learned in that space that you were able to kind of translate over to an education setting?
Oh my gosh, tons.
So many. Okay.
So many. That's been a huge shift. Just and I've been able to share that with my staff members. I've like my direct reports. I've been able to share that with teachers. So a couple of the things that come to mind really quickly is the 1 Minute Manager from, that's been in business world for years now. Right?
Yeah.
And, just how to help empower others, how to help have, structure within what we're doing and action plans has been huge. And the other thing is situational leadership. They talk about retention. So what I mean by that is, what do, new hires come in with? What do they know? Sometimes we already expect them to know all these things, but they've never done it here.
Yeah.
So we're like, hey, great job, you got this, but they actually need more than that.
Yeah.
Vice versa. Somebody who knows how to do the job, we micromanage them or we give them all the advice in the world, where that's not going to help them either. So that's been those two things have like really helped kind of change my mentality. And so we do a lot of goal setting here.
Okay.
And that's one thing from the 1 Minute Manager. So all my admin and all my direct reports, they do their own goals for the year. It can change, right? So a goal can be a month-long goal or a year-long goal or a weekly goal. We meet monthly. We have tracking sheets that they use. And those tracking sheets aren't for me. They're for themselves to be able to understand where they are. And then they can reflect back on it so they can see their own growth. And I do it too. I do the same thing. And what we
Very
realize is as
cool.
we do it, we'll forget our goal for a month or two because we get so busy in managing and working in the day-to-day of the
Yep.
schools that our goals lose sight. So that's been really helpful.
That's great. That's really cool to hear. How has the reaction been to that type of work with your team? Is everybody like, okay, great, all in on goal setting and tracking and all of those things, or have you ever met any resistance to that?
So no, I have an administrator here. And I'm not going to say, I'm going to use like they and them. So, I don't identify.
Yeah.
Yep. But they, they said it's changed the way that they do their job.
Really?
Yeah. It's and that was awesome for me. I was like, oh my gosh, that's so
no
cool.
Kidding.
That because I felt the same way when I did it. And they're like, it just helped me focus so much better. And, they really love it. So we do really focus in on those goals and those goal settings. And that's been helpful. I just met with a new administrator today who has tons of experience in schools. And they said they've never been with a superintendent who's done that before. And they find it extremely helpful just to be able to have an opportunity to go through the goal, to see where they are, and then kind of just have those checking points,
Yeah. That's great. Do you have any guidance for the goals that they set? Are the goals that they set really and truly up to them? Like, do you have any goals that, sort of trickle down or that are, kind of part of a framework that they're building their goals from?
Yeah.
In kind of a OKR framework?
Yeah. So it goes both, right? Because I want people to be empowered to make their own goal based on what they're seeing and the data that they collect. But we try to also align it to district strategic plans, to what the goals of their building leadership teams are, or their district leadership team is. Those are our shared decision-making models. So we kind of try to focus it on, welcoming environment, a whole bunch of different components, social emotional learning, academic learning, staff culture and morale. So we really focus on it, and we use data to help kind of guide it. Most of it's perception data through a panorama survey that we utilize. But it kind of is both.
Great. That's great. Are there any goals that you have seen a staff member or one of your direct reports set, as part of that goal setting process that you think have been really transformative to the district?
I think there's been a bunch of great work done.
Yeah.
But when I see that personal growth go, right? Because I asked them all to have a personal growth. Like, what is the one thing that you want to work on that will make you a better leader?
Yeah.
Those are the ones that I see have the biggest impact, and 2 or 3 years later, I'll have a staff member come to me and they'll be like, if you can see, I've really worked on X. I really worked on listening to staff members, or not getting defensive when somebody critiques me, or, because those are all things as leaders, people forget we struggle with that too, right? Because we want to put all our effort into it, but those people skills are always difficult, and those, personal. So those are the ones I think that make the biggest impact.
That is so great to hear. That's such a, it's a big deal to say that, right? That it's like that it, of course the, district strategy aligned goals are very important, but the things that we're doing to work on our own personal growth are the things that end up having this sort of lasting effect on the culture of the building. Would you say that the district has like this kind of goal setting culture? Like, is that part of what defines the culture that you have?
I think it's growing into that. I think culture is one of those things that you can't really define all the time. It's constantly changing depending on all the dynamics that are happening within your district, within your community. So I think we're getting to the point of where we set a lot of goals and we kind of meet them. But it's ever evolving.
That's great. Wonderful. Well, shifting gears just ever so slightly, but kind of moving to your educators, your teachers that they're working in your buildings. Tell me a little bit about some ways that you work to elevate educator voice and share those stories in your district.
So that's always something we're trying to work on and move forward on, to be very honest with you. And I don't know if I'm the best at that, because again, being the superintendent, you're not in the buildings. You're not able to be the boots on the ground. So I try to empower our building leaders to make sure that they are enforcing that, and they're reinforcing our staff members and sharing their voice and sharing their success stories. it's harder when you're not within it and at a district level. So the building leaders really do help do that a lot. A few structures we put in place at the district level that I think help support that is we do have a lot of committees here.
Okay.
So we are a committee-based structure. A few years back, we completely redefined our shared decision-making culture.
Okay.
To have input, and that can be hard for people too, because input isn't always control; it's input.
That's right.
And that's a hard structure for people to understand. Is, well, I gave you my input, and you didn't do what I said.
Yeah.
So we work on making sure that people have a full understanding of that. But we have tons of committees. And one thing I think we're proud of is that we put an incentive in our contract that if you are a part of a committee, you do get an incentive back.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So that's kind of, a little different. But if you're part of that committee, they do have an incentive because we do want to value people and we want people to feel valued. And incentives are a way to do so.
That's great. That's awesome. Tell me a little bit, coming back to that, that move towards a shared decision making. What did that look like to start?
Lots of conversations.
Okay.
And I think a lot of apprehension, to be honest with you.
Okay. Tell us a little bit more about what that means in your district.
Yeah. So when it first started, we had building level committees, but they weren't really focused and they weren't clear and concise on what their jobs were and what their roles were. So now what we have is we have building level committees that meet, and we have a district level committee that meets as well. The building level committees meet monthly, and every other month, stakeholder groups come in, so like parents and or students. Same with the district. The district meets monthly, and it's all staff. And then every other month, parents and students also join us.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So,
great.
And then they focus in on, and we have curricular committees that do focus on curriculum. So when we were doing our new reading program, the building leadership team and a reading leadership team kind of looked at all those programs and brought them in. They focus in on, right now, they're doing an executive functioning survey.
Okay.
At our middle school. So the teams are highlighting and choosing items that they want to focus in on, and then making that a goal for the year for the team.
Okay.
So
okay. And participation for your educators and staff is voluntary, but incentivized.
Voluntary. Yep. Each building level team, there we go, has roughly 6 to 10 staff members on it.
Okay. Oh, that's great. And do people stay on for a while?
Yeah. Sometimes it's a year. Sometimes it's 3 or 4 years.
Great. That's really cool. What are some of the things that you, I guess, like more than anything, like what do you think that shared decision making model has changed as far as the culture is concerned? Where has that made an impact on kind of what the overall culture is in the district?
It's a lot for voice, right? Because people felt that decisions were happening behind closed doors. Mm-hmm. And this is a more transparent kind of decision, transparent conversation. And so it allows for teacher voice and student voice, and it allows for some direction of where we want to go.
Yeah.
And I think that's really helped, especially at the building levels. I think that's where most of the power comes from because, those building components are the things that people see. People don't always see what happens at a district level.
Right.
But at the building level, it's tangible. And so those building levels really, I think, have changed that culture because people have a voice, a sense of urgency, a sense of control of what they're doing. And they do. It's very clear.
That's really cool. You mentioned something that sometimes that kind of shared decision making, like the idea of input versus decision, can be hard because people are like, I told you, I gave you my input, and you didn't do it. How do you address that as a leader? How do you think about that?
Well, I call it out. I say exactly what it is. I'm very clear across the board saying this is an advising role. This is what it is. And, and it comes back down to that perception that, that ladder of inferencing, we do value you. And I understand that you may not agree with this decision. And I say why we didn't do it. Right. Yeah. Like, I understand your input, but here's why. It doesn't always work. And not everyone's going to see it that way. But we do our best to make sure that we're at least leveling it out so people understand that it's not personal. One of the things that we did with our shared decision-making group is we have basically 8 things that we talk about, saying, here are our ground rules.
Okay.
And one of the things is we won't, we'll leave our egos at the door. We'll talk about, we're not talking about people. we're talking about items, not people. So I can't remember them all off the top of my head. But
I wasn't going to ask you to remember them all.
I know I can pull them up as we're talking.
Yeah, no, that's great.
But it really sets the goal of, look, we might have very difficult conversations in here, and that's okay. Conflict is a good thing, right? And having those conversations is important. It's the outcome that is really good, is that everybody gets to hear, understand, and we may not always agree, but it should all go down the table.
Yeah.
And I think that's is changing culture bit by bit.
Yeah, I imagine. Well, Frank, you have this extremely, kind of in this ambitious world over there in your district. You've got people setting goals, you're tracking all your visits, you've got, the shared decision making, you've got committees, you've got people participating in all of these different things. But we hear in the world a lot in educators around the ideas of kind of burnout or fatigue. How do you balance that? How do you create balance for your educators and for your staff around that kind of burnout question?
So I try to look at a change model. Well, for myself, I have no idea how to do that because I feel like I'm constantly tired. But we look at a change model and it's how, what are we doing and how many people is it impacting and how much is it impacting? So if we're making a small change, let's say it's a letterhead change. Well, that might only impact 3 people. That's very simple, right? But if we're making a change with curriculum, that can impact a whole building and professional development. So if that's a large scale change, we're not going to put another large scale change on at the moment. But as that large scale change starts to dwindle, and say we've done that for 2 years or 3 years, now it's a perfect opportunity to put another large scale change on. So we try to keep it balanced, looking at that change model going forward. And that's what I ask of our staff when we're doing our goal setting is same idea. If it's large, only pick one large scale change. Other things need to be smaller and look at the impact.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. I think that's such a helpful framework, honestly, to say, what is it that we're doing and how many people does it impact? It's actually a very simple question to ask for anyone to ask themselves. Anyone in any building could say like, oh, I want to change this. Like, is this going to impact, just me and my job, or is this going to potentially impact, the entire 4th grade or, things like that. So that's excellent. That's a great way to balance that. This is so much fun to talk with you about leadership and all of these different practices that you bring. Of course, the show is called Little Wins for a reason. We believe that there's lots of little things that sometimes might get overlooked, but are truly like the culture builders of a school or a district. So tell me about some smaller everyday practices that happen in your district that make your kind of help strengthen your school culture or your district culture.
So this is one that I don't do at all. But but we've encouraged it. But this is something that's always been happening is we have people greet people every day when they walk in.
Yeah.
And that is so important. We have a custodian who greets students every single day at the door. And it's just, and and when he's not there, you can feel that sense of, something's missing. And those are the important things, that just those smiles, the acknowledgments. I know we've heard this across the board that changes everything, but it really truly does. That is, to me, the most important. If I walk down a hallway and I see a staff member and I say hello, and they say hello back, I feel like we have a connection. But if we don't, then we're missing something. We're so tied up in our day and everything else that we're missing our connections. To me, that's everything.
Yeah. Tell me about that custodian. Tell me about that custodian who greets your kids at the door every day. Whose idea was that? Was that
That's him? That's him.
Okay.
And we had a senior graduate a couple years ago, and they were acknowledged. And they said, "What is one thing that has made it important for you at your school?" And they really said it was him.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. What's his name?
His name is Lance.
Lance. Oh my gosh, we all need a custodian like Lance.
Yeah, we all need a Lance. That's incredible. That's the important, that's the important aspect of this is we can teach all day. We can make sure that students learn. We can do all this. But if we don't teach everyone how to be citizens and respectful to one another, then we're missing out. And that's the important. We have a Birds mantra here. It's be inclusive, responsible, determined, and strong.
Okay, let's hear it again. Be inclusive,
responsible, determined, strong. So
love it.
We're the Blackbirds,
Yep.
So kind of fits. We
I love it.
we did a whole district-wide kind of mission statement based off of that. Students all put in for it. We then voted on it. So this was, a year-long making. So, I mean, that really does embody who we are. And I think that's the little wins, is how do we make sure that Birds mantra is always present? And today I even got an email from a parent saying, I know you can't do anything, but I have a video of 2 older students. They saw my son playing ball and they're looking at him and they included him in. That really is everything you do here. So awesome that parents are even recognizing it and then making sure that we recognize students for that. Like, how cool is that?
Well, that's what I was just going to say. I think the most significant thing of that story, the fact that, those kids are including that kid is like, of course, like that's incredible. The fact that that parent wanted to tell the superintendent of that because they knew it would be important to you and they knew that would get back to those kids is like, that's what the culture
awesome,
of that
it?
building. Yeah, that's really.
And
that's
I
awesome.
had a great day today, because there's always issues, but that one was like, oh my gosh, this made my day.
Yeah, that would make my day too. That's super good. That's great. Tell me a little bit about kind of how, or I guess like maybe let me just ask you one more question about that. Why do you think that happened? What do you think it is that is happening? Are there things that you guys are encouraging or things that are part of the relationship with parents that are the reason that a parent would do that?
Well, I think there's a ton of things that I think I'll lean to it, right? And it doesn't happen overnight. It's years. We've been having these conversations and building them. We have a new PBIS program in our elementary school called the Blackbird Way. We have our Birds mantra. We have a video on our Instagram and website. It's all about birds, right? About what it is. We have a district song that even goes along with it.
Wow.
So, it's like we embody it, we share it, we communicate it. I think it's a whole bunch of different things. It's that it's front and center in who we are and what we do. And again, like I said, we bleed purple and gold in this community.
Yeah.
So it all kind of ties together.
That's awesome. It's so fun to hear. I love getting to talk to leaders on this podcast because each district is a little bit different and each one has these kind of moments of sort of culture that come through. That's such a fun one and clear. Like that story is just so clear about, really what your culture is about. And the fact that there's that much, sort of intention and care and unity happening alongside this very, goal setting, strong, kind of achievement focus is a neat balance to see. So I appreciate that. Well, we end all of our episodes here with 3 questions. That's kind of our lightning round. Are you ready? Are you ready for those 3 questions?
I am ready for them.
Okay. First one is, what are the 3 words that you want to define your district culture?
So I would say centered, focused, and determined.
Ooh, those are great. I will say, I think that you are the first person that has ever given me those 3. That's great. Say a little bit more about that.
Well, because centered, it's who are we centered on? What are we working on? What is our main mission and goal? So, and everything can build off from that. Focused is, where are we focused? What are we working on? Yes, we're academic. We want to make sure that every student is learning. So there's our focus. We're focusing on our SEL. We're focusing on our threats. We're focusing, our threat assessments and making sure every student feels valued and welcomed. And how are we helping students? So we're picking those things to focus on them. And then determined is, we're not going to stop. There's going to be times where it's going to be difficult, or that we might get pushback, or we feel like it's not worth it, or we feel like we've already hit that mark, so we're good.
Yeah.
And that's where you fail, right?
Right.
So that's why I picked determined.
Yeah. I love it. I love those 3: centered, focused, and determined. Those are great. Okay, next question in the lightning round. What is one little win at work that you've had lately that we can celebrate for you?
I just shared it.
Yep.
It's that one with that parent like reaching out and just telling us about the student. I think that's just amazing.
Yeah.
And the other joke I make is I tell we have a construction project here, which can be difficult if anyone's ever went through construction. And we just finished one of ours, and I did like a video vlog of it, which I've never done before.
Okay.
And my daughter, who's 17 years old, was making fun of me because my head was in it so much. But But I joke because we're trending because like I got like over 4,000 views or whatever. So it's like, yay, I was trending on that. And I thought that was a little win. But that's the reason why I think it's a little win is not because I'm trending. It's because I found a new way to communicate with my community.
Yeah.
I never realized that I could do that. I'm like, okay, well, if this is working, how else could I use this?
Yeah.
So to me, that was a huge win.
That's so good. I was just speaking on this with a principal last week who a year ago decided to make one TikTok video, and he made one TikTok video that he sent out to the entire school community the next morning, and then was like, oh, well, I'll just like, I'm going to try it. Like people loved it. Like it was trending and like the whole community loved it. So he's like, I'll just keep doing it. So he started doing them every morning. And at one point he was like, this is too much. I can't do these at 6:00 every single morning. So he went to weekly, and he was like, it was an uprising. Like he was like, I got so much pushback for not doing it daily. He's like, so now every morning, 6 a.m. it's what I do. And he was but he kind of said the same reason that it was like, this is this communication style that taps into my community and to our kids in a way that's really meaningful for them. And he's like, it's 30 seconds to a minute of my day. And he was like, almost everywhere. He's like, we have 1,000 kids in our district and about 1,000 people watch it every day. So he was like, I think it resonates in this really interesting way, which I just thought was pretty cool.
Fantastic.
That's great. Okay. Third question, final question. We talk a lot about how school culture it's everyone's job. It's not just the leader's job in any school or district. So what do you believe that any educator could do right now to improve their school culture?
They can step out of their shoes and try to see what it would be to perceive themselves from someone else's viewpoint. So how are the kids seeing you? How are the parents seeing you? And really look at it. Like, look at your communication, look at what your actions are and saying, how are you actually being perceived? Because that can change your whole mentality and everything you do.
Yeah, I love it. Frank, how do you do that?
Well, I think first off, you have to be very open with yourself.
Yeah.
And really look at it and say, as a parent, if I was a superintendent, not a parent looking at the superintendent, would I like the actions I'm seeing? What am I seeing from this person? And really put yourself in that person's shoes and really try to understand it. Take away your ego, right?
Yep.
Because we all have one. Take away any bias you have and say, what am I really doing? And am I doing, how am I actually being perceived? And sometimes ask somebody that you can trust too.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. It's such great advice. And honestly, you just have so much here that we have learned in just a short period of time. Everything from, having a really intentional mantra that you truly embody and share, to really leaning into situational leadership and goal setting with your staff, to taking on professional development yourself in order to improve, and emphasizing personal growth goals for your team, to shared decision making, and tracking every interaction with staff members. I love that. That's the first time I've heard that one, all the way to playing the saxophone in the hallways, the holidays. So these are really amazing things. You've given us such a wonderful perspective on the little wins that are happening in your district. And we're so grateful for you being here. Thank you so much for teaching us today.
Great. Thank you for having me.
Have a little win? We'd love to hear from you. Learn how we help schools build strong culture at getalpaca.com.